Hey guys, so I've been going through the comments and a lot of people have been asking about colorants in soap making. So today we're gonna talk exactly about that. Why some colors fade through time, why some colors are more stable, which portions to use, and we're gonna talk about pH and alkalinity and how this could affect your colorants. And then we're also going to talk about the method that is called cold process oven process method to see if it actually makes any difference on making your colors more vibrant in your soap. Now we're also going to distinguish between the natural colorants and the less natural synthetic colorants, and you will see which natural colorants are very stable and which natural colorants are not very stable in soap making. Without further ado, let's get down to this video. And if you're new to soap making, or if you have been making soap for a while, I have a free beginner's recipe that includes a very balanced recipe with shea butter, castor oil, coconut oil and olive oil. Been getting a lot of great feedback for this recipe. I also have an essential oil blend that is long lasting with patchouli, pine and ylang ylang essential oils. If you want this recipe, comment soap and I will send it to you. Before we start talking about the colorants, let's talk about saponification, and you will understand why this is very important for this video. Saponification is basically the reaction between oils and lye, otherwise known as sodium hydroxide, that produces soap and glycerin. Now, there is one thing that is very important about the saponification reaction, and this is the pH. So the lye solution has a very high pH, a very alkaline pH, close to 14, which is very basic, and that's exactly why the lye solution is caustic and it's dangerous for your skin and it can burn your skin basically. So when you mix your oils and lye solution together, you operate in an alkaline environment. Now, the end pH after curing of your soap will be around 9 to 10. In those alkaline pH values, colors are not very stable, and especially natural colorants. Now, natural colorants are usually a mixture of organic compounds, and those organic compounds usually degrade during high pH levels and high temperatures too. So the natural pigments are usually very easily degradable in alkaline environments. Let's take the first example, and this is a very common one. It's called spirulina powder. Now, when I first got it, I thought it was amazing. It has a very nice deep green color, as you can perhaps see here. And the moment you add it into your soap, it looks fine. And after a few days, it starts getting slightly brownish. So it actually changes color. And this happens because it contains a lot of organic compounds that tend to degrade over alkaline environments like the ones we see in soap making. The same can happen. So I like to make soap with many different ingredients, and I've tried a lot of different vegetables. And once I made soap with red pepper, because I thought, what if I juice red pepper, I take the red pepper juice, and then I use that as a lye water, which is something that you can do. So I replaced the lye water with red pepper juice. And what happened there is that, of course, I froze the red pepper juice. So always when you make lye solution with a juice or a milk, make sure you freeze them down first to avoid any overheating, because that's the safest way to go on. So I made the lye solution, it was nice and red, and then I put it into the soap, and what I ended up getting is this soap right here. So as you can see, it's not quite red, it's more like orange brownish, and it was actually more red when I first made it, and it turned like that through time. So this is exactly what happens when you use certain natural pigments in your soap. They degrade and they will turn slightly brownish, but not all of them. So there are some like carrot juice, which is one of my favorite ones. And carrot juice, I find it to be very, very stable. So you mix it with your, you basically create the lye solution by replacing the lye water with carrot juice, and you get, after you mix it with your oils, you get this beautiful soap right here. The color is yellow, and it will remain yellow through time, so it's quite stable, and I honestly love using carrot juice for soap making. The next ingredient we're going to talk about is sea buckthorn oil. Now this is an amazing natural colorant as well, and as you can see, it has a very deep orange color. When you add it into soap, it creates this beautiful, it depends on how much you add it, but it will create this beautiful yellow color basically. You can see in this soap right here, I've added a bit more, you can see here, so it looks more orange. And it's quite stable ingredient. It also adds some nutrients like some vitamins and antioxidants. But what's very interesting about that is that if you leave it close to sunlight, so if it's exposed to sunlight, the color tends to degrade. That's what I found out. So if you literally leave it next to the window, after 2-3 weeks, it won't be yellow. Actually, it will turn slightly whitish. Then let's talk about turmeric. Now turmeric is another natural powder that is phenomenal. And for this one, you can literally add 1 teaspoon, from 1 teaspoon to 1 tablespoon per 1000 grams of oils. So if your total recipe has 1000 grams of oils, then you can add to that around from 1 teaspoon to 1 tablespoon, depending on how strong you want the color to be. So let's take an example here. You can see this part right here. This is half soap, like white soap, and the other one is turmeric. It's not very significant. It's not very vibrant because I only used 1 teaspoon. But here, yes, here you can see it. I used 1 tablespoon, and you can really see the difference. So half of the soap was with turmeric and the other half was just plain soap. And you can see how beautiful turmeric is. It adds this amazing color, and it also adds some exfoliating properties to your soap. So far from the natural colorants, I highly recommend carrot juice, sea buckthorn oil, and the turmeric powder. And then there's one more that honestly, it never disappoints, and this is charcoal. Now charcoal powder is natural, it's activated charcoal, and it adds some exfoliation properties to your soap. It also adds some antimicrobial properties to your soap, and it creates this beautiful black color. Now this is very stable, so I've had soaps that I've made months ago and they still look beautiful. Of course, this soap right here is a mixture of charcoal, sea buckthorn oil, and then just some white soap right here. But you can see how beautiful the black part is looking like. So far we've talked about sea buckthorn oil, we've talked about turmeric, we've talked about charcoal and how amazing those are in soap making. We've talked about red pepper and spirulina, how this actually led to a slightly more brownish soap because they tend to degrade really fast. So now let's go to another area, and this is the Micas. Now when you see this soap, honestly it's beautiful. You can see this green right here. This green is called green oxide, and it's a naturally occurring pigment. So what happens basically is that you have certain minerals and some pigments that are naturally occurring, and they extract, when they produce those, they extract those and then they usually coat them with some synthetic materials. And that's why there is a debate whether Micas are natural or not, because they derive from naturally occurring minerals, but a lot of Micas actually, they are treated later on with other synthetic ingredients to make them more stable and to make them more vibrant. Whether Micas are natural or not, it's kind of on a gray area. You will find both opinions out there. But this one is green oxide. It's a safe pigment that you can use, and you can see this is extremely stable. And the reason why this is very stable in soap making and in an alkaline environment, it's because it's inorganic. So inorganic compounds do not react with anything else, basically do not react with other compounds in soap making, and that's why they do not degrade in high pH and high temperature. Apart from this, you can also use some clays, and clays, there are many different types of clays. White kaolin clay is a very typical type of clay, but what you should know about clays is that they also accelerate trace, so they make your soap solidify faster, so you should be aware of that. Let's go ahead and talk about how you add those colorants into your soap. So when it comes to turmeric, I actually like to add it at trace. What does that mean? The moment you mix your oils and lye solution together, they have emulsified, they had reached this basically light trace where you can see the soap butter start thickening up. This is the moment where I add turmeric, just as a powder down in the trace, and it works perfectly fine. I add anything between 1 teaspoon to 1 tablespoon per kilo of oils, depending on how vibrant you want your color to be, and then it can look something like this, so it's beautiful. Then sea buckthorn oil is a bit different. So what I do with sea buckthorn oil is that I literally add a few drops, like right at the end when I have reached trace. I will just open this and I will add a few drops because it's so potent. Like a few drops will change the color completely. You don't need a lot. So you can also include it in your soap making recipe. So I have a recipe where I include it as 1 to 2% of your total oils. You cannot add more, unfortunately, because sea buckthorn oil is high in unsaponifiable substances, meaning that substances that do not saponify. So you do not want to add a lot of it. Then when it comes to carrot juice, as I said, you just replace the lye water with carrot juice, and you make sure you freeze it down to avoid any overheating, because the sugars in carrot juice react with lye and they basically increase the temperature of the solution. Now let's talk about micas. Micas are very important because you can see the soap, it's made with green and white. Now both of these are micas, and the white mica is perfectly, like, it looks perfect, so does the green, but you cannot just add them at trace. So the way you do that is that you literally take a small glass or a beaker, you add half a teaspoon of your mica, okay, and you dissolve it in a bit of oil or water, and then you add it into the soap. You don't want to add it directly as a powder because it might create clumps. So you just want to avoid that. What I like to do is that if I want a very intense color, I will add 1 teaspoon. If I don't want to be very intense, I will add half a teaspoon per kilo of oils. Now charcoal is another amazing ingredient, and that luckily you do not have to dissolve in water or oil first. You can just add it at trace. So right at the end, you just add it as a powder basically. And depending on how strong you want to be, you can add anything from 1 teaspoon to 1 tablespoon per kilo of oils. Again, one thing you should know about charcoal is that it stains. So if you add a lot, you will get a really nice black soap, but it will stain your sink. And now let's go to the final point, which is the cold process oven process method. Now what is that exactly? You literally pour your soap into the mold, you insulate it, and then you put it in the oven at the lowest possible temperature, let's say 30 degrees Celsius, and you leave it there for 3 to 4 hours. What happens during that time is that you basically have a lot of heat and you accelerate your soap to reach gel phase. And some colorants, when they reach gel phase, they tend to brighten up, they tend to become slightly more vibrant. And I like to do that when I work with micas, so micas can really tolerate the heat, but I would never do that with a natural colorant. Like I wouldn't do that, for example, if I were to do that with red pepper juice soap, it will turn brown right away. So you want to do it with some stable colorants like Micas. Otherwise, as I said before, heat and pH usually degrade natural colorants. So my conclusion is that if you want stability and if you want something that is long lasting, then choose Micas. If you want to use completely natural colorants, you have to accept that some of them will degrade over time. Now, the ones that are very stable are turmeric, charcoal, carrot juice, and sea buckthorn oil. As I said, it's very stable, but if you leave it close to light, the UV will basically degrade it completely. If you want to know more about soap making, not only just to follow recipes, but to understand formulation, because my aim with you is not only for you to understand how to copy recipes, but for you to understand how to actually formulate your own recipes for your own goals and how to understand the properties of the different oils, then I have an ebook that you will find very useful. It has added a lot of value to a lot of people and I've been receiving a lot of feedback, so I would love to hear what you have to say. It contains a lot of soap making recipes, but also other skincare recipes like massage candle, hand cream, shampoo bars, conditioner bars, lip balms, deodorants, and so on. If you want this, click the link in my bio. Thank you so much for watching all the way to here. I really appreciate it. I'm also reading all the comments from time to time and trying to find the common pain points that people have in soap making and tailor my videos around that. So guys, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.